Afternoon light filled Hawthorne Manor's windows. Sarah Davies dropped her duster to the marble, her eyes fixed on the portrait above the grand piano, hands trembling wildly. She knew that woman, spoken with her dozens of times at the Serenity Clinic in Dagenham. Everyone at the manor said she was 6 years dead, but Sarah knew the truth. Eleanor Sterling was alive. Her revelation would destroy everything Julian Sterling believed he knew of his life. Delighted you're with me. Tell me where you're listening from. Like, subscribe, and let's uncover this incredible story together. The afternoon sun struck Hawthorne Manor's glass windows with an almost cruel insistence, casting elongated shadows across the marble floors, which mirrored the house's cold silence. In the vast, interminable corridors, opulence brutally contrasted with the emotional void that hung in the air like an invisible, suffocating fog. It was an imposing edifice, built upon generations of fortune, amassed through decades of shrewd business and toil, yet now it seemed to drain the life from its inhabitants, as if the very walls fed on their sorrow. In the external garden, meticulously tended by gardeners who appeared in the early hours, roses cultivated with excessive precision, aligned in perfect beds, like soldiers in formation, awaiting orders that would never come. They were beautiful, undoubtedly, but utterly soulless prisoners of an artificial order that denied their wild nature. Julian Sterling, the sole heir to all that fortune and responsibility, walked through the library with measured, calculated steps, leafing through contracts that no longer stirred any emotion in his weary chest. At 42, he had become the perfect image of the successful man admired at charity galas and social season events. An impeccable suit, bespoke from Savile Row tailors, an erect posture demonstrating years of refined education, a distant gaze many interpreted as business concentration, but which in truth concealed an abyss of solitude. Yet behind the carefully constructed facade, something silently drained away, day after day, like sand slipping through his fingers. He touched the spines of old books his mother used to read on lazy Sunday afternoons, feeling the unbearable weight of an absence never filled, a black hole in his soul, consuming any attempt at happiness. 6 years ago, she had departed, or so they had told him with solemn voices and empty condolences. At the far end of the vast room, atop the imported grand piano, untouched since that ill-fated day, rested a portrait framed in hand-chased silver. It depicted Eleanor Sterling, her smile serene yet enigmatic, eyes guarding ancient secrets, and a kindness that radiated even through the aged photograph. Julian Sterling avoided looking directly at the image whenever he entered the library. The searing pain of loss, a silent guilt gnawing at his core during sleepless nights, still burned with an unbearable intensity, like embers refusing to die, even after years. It was on an ordinary Thursday afternoon, a day when the world felt tedious and predictable, that everything irrevocably shifted. Sarah Davies, the new general assistant hired 3 weeks prior after rigorous selection, entered the library carrying a feather duster and a bucket of cleaning supplies. She was simple in appearance, her calloused hands showing hard graft, her honest expression inspiring immediate trust. Her brown eyes conveyed a natural kindness that could not be feigned. When her gaze landed upon the portrait on the piano, she froze as if confronting a specter. The duster clattered to the floor, a dry thud echoing, shattering the heavy atmosphere. Her hands began to tremble visibly, and she mumbled something inaudible before turning abruptly, as if desperate to flee the unsettling sight. Julian Sterling lifted his eyes from the papers he was feigning to read, sensing an oddness in the assistant's demeanor. "Is there a problem?" His voice emerged harsher than intended, laden with years of excessive emotional restraint. Sarah swallowed hard, hesitating for long seconds that stretched into an eternity, yet something deep within her, stronger than the fear of losing her job or trouble, would not allow her to retreat. "Sir, That woman in the portrait, I know her." The words emerged, tremulous but resolute, burdened with a weight she could no longer hold alone. Julian Sterling frowned, utterly incredulous at the absurd assertion. "Impossible. She passed away 6 years ago. I was at the funeral. Her name is on a crypt in the family burial grounds." His voice carried a defensive irritation, as if to shield him from a truth beginning to insinuate itself into his consciousness. "No, sir." Sarah's voice was firm now, despite the visible fear that made her hands tremble. "I worked at the Serenity Clinic in Dagenham for almost 3 years before this. That woman, I saw her there many times. She was alive. I spoke with her. I'm certain of what I'm saying." Each word chosen with undeniable conviction. Julian Sterling's blood ran cold, a prickling sensation crawling down his spine. He pushed himself slowly from the deep leather armchair, his heart thudding erratically and painfully against his ribs. The opulent room around him seemed to have lost its very solidity, spinning subtly. "What exactly are you saying? Choose your words with extreme caution," he managed, a veiled threat in his voice, yet also a thinly disguised desperation clawing at his throat. Sarah Davies took a shaky breath, fighting back the tears threatening to overwhelm her. "I saw her dozens of times during my night shifts at the Serenity Clinic in Dagenham. She was kept in a locked room on the 3rd floor, always alone, isolated from the other patients. They said she was dangerous, that she had violent outbursts, that she needed to be sedated. But I talked to her when no one was watching. She was completely lucid, kind, educated. She spoke of a son with so much love in her eyes. She spoke of you, Mr. Sterling. She showed me an old photograph she kept hidden under her pillow." Tears finally streamed down Sarah's face as she continued. "She made me swear that if I ever found you, I would tell you the truth. And now I understand why the Sterling name sounded familiar when I came to work here." The words struck Julian like a devastating avalanche, burying him beneath tons of terrifying possibilities. Repressed memories began to resurface, jagged shards of glass lacerating his consciousness. The inexplicable haste with which Genevieve, his wife, had organized the funeral before he could even properly process the news of the death. Her categorical refusal to allow him to see the body one last time, claiming it would be too traumatic. Her obsessive insistence on a swift cremation when the Sterling family had always opted for traditional burials. At the time, still stunned by grief and bewilderment, he had attributed it all to shock and his wife's protective zeal, trying to shield him from even greater suffering. But now, with the chilling perspective only time and this brutal revelation could offer, every detail took on a new, sinister meaning, like pieces of a macabre jigsaw puzzle finally clicking into place. Genevieve appeared in the corridor at that precise moment, as if some primal instinct had alerted her that something was amiss. She was elegant as ever, dressed in designer clothes that cost more than Sarah Davies earned in half a year, but with a visibly tense demeanor and eyes sniffing out danger. "Julian, who is this woman? Why is she disturbing you with these preposterous stories?" Her voice carried that controlling tone he had learned to recognize over 15 years of marriage, a tone that brooked no argument. Julian offered no immediate reply. His eyes remained fixed on Sarah, scrutinizing every micro-expression on her face, probing for deceit or fabrication. But all he saw was unvarnished sincerity and a profound dread of her bombshell's repercussions. "Do you have concrete proof of your assertions? Any evidence beyond your mere word?" His voice emerged softer now, almost a plea. Sarah hesitated. Her gaze darted nervously towards Genevieve before she answered. "I have some things put aside. Photos I secretly took with my old mobile when I realized something was deeply amiss at that clinic. The staff themselves were too frightened to speak of certain patients. I can show them to you if you wish, sir." Genevieve advanced a few steps, her heels sharp, menacing staccatos upon the marble floor, her voice becoming frigid and sharp as a honed blade. "This is utterly preposterous, Julian, and you know it. This woman is clearly attempting to blackmail our family, fabricating grotesque fictions merely to manipulate us. It's a blatant con, Julian. Can you not perceive it? Dismiss her at once before she inflicts more damage." There was a raw desperation, barely masked by Genevieve's controlled fury, a hairline fracture in her composed facade. But for the first time in many years, since he relinquished the reins of his life to Genevieve after his mother's supposed demise, Julian did not blindly acquiesce. Something primal stirred deep within him, a spark of instinct or a desperation that refused to be silenced, compelling him to question. "I shall investigate this personally. If it proves a lie, Sarah will be prosecuted. But if there's the slightest thread of truth..." He left the implication hanging starkly in the air. In the days that followed, which bled into weeks of relentless investigation, Julian plunged into a clandestine quest for truth, toiling through the pre-dawn hours as others slept. He painstakingly reviewed dormant bank statements tucked in archives Genevieve presumed lost, unearthing regular, substantial transfers to the Serenity Clinic, all bearing Genevieve's meticulous authorization over 6 years. The sums were truly astronomical, shrouded in secrecy, deftly concealed amidst dozens of other transactions to obfuscate their purpose. When he directly confronted the clinic's venal management, posing as a keen prospective investor, he found conveniently purged records. Staff mysteriously dismissed after daring to query questionable procedures, and an undeniable trail of systemic graft leading directly to the administration. Individuals handsomely compensated to maintain a deadly, unyielding silence on specific troubling situations. Sarah Davies, despite the palpable fear of reprisal that kept her constantly glancing over her shoulder, showed him the photos she kept on a hidden USB stick. They were blurred images, taken surreptitiously during her night shifts, when the corridors were deserted, but they were unmistakable to anyone who knew that face. Eleanor Sterling, aged by time and suffering, her once brown hair now completely white, deep-set eyes holding years of solitude and betrayal, but alive, unequivocally alive. In one of the clearest photos, she clutched to her chest an old yellowed photograph, the very one Julian had carried in his wallet since adolescence, a picture of them both in the Hawthorne Manor garden when he was just 10 years old. The revelation hit him like a brutal physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. He spent an entire night locked in his study, weeping for the first time in years, utterly destroyed by the comprehension of what had been stolen from him. 6 years. 6 years of his mother's life thrown away, buried alive, while he mourned over an empty grave. 6 years she had withered alone in a locked room, waiting for a rescue that never came. He confronted Genevieve in their private study the following morning, before the sun had fully risen. His voice was hoarse with contained emotion that threatened to erupt at any moment. "You knew from the very beginning. You lied to me all these years, looking into my eyes while I suffered. Why? Why would you do something so monstrous?" Tears streamed down his face, but his voice carried a chilling fury Genevieve had never witnessed before. Genevieve, realizing she was cornered and the evidence irrefutable, completely lost the composure she had carefully maintained for 15 years. Her face contorted into a grotesque mixture of fury, desperation, and something that could only be described as madness. "Because she was in my way, because I needed you, your fortune, your name, your social standing. She never accepted me from day one. Always distrusted me with that superior look of hers, always treated me like an interloper who didn't deserve to be in this family." Genevieve screamed now, all the poison she had harbored for years finally spilling over. "She investigated my accounts, questioned every penny I spent, told you I wasn't good enough. So yes, I had her committed. I forged the medical documents, paid the doctors to diagnose dementia and dangerousness, bribed staff to keep silent. I arranged a fake funeral with an empty coffin, and I would do it all again if necessary, because without her in the way, I finally had you all to myself. I had access to the fortune. I had the power I always deserved. Julian felt the ground literally vanish beneath his feet, as if he were plummeting into a bottomless abyss. The woman with whom he had shared 15 years of marriage, with whom he had built a life, the mother of his daughter Chloe, had stolen his own mother in the cruelest way imaginable. Precious years of companionship were lost forever, Christmases and birthdays spent in false lamentation, tears shed over an empty grave, while Eleanor wasted away in isolation, believing her son had abandoned her. But Eleanor was no longer at the Serenity Clinic, Dagenham, when Julian finally gained authorization to investigate the premises. Sarah revealed, through former colleagues' contacts, that following a CQC Met police inspection, prompted by anonymous complaints of mistreatment, several irregularly placed patients had been hastily transferred to avert scandal. Through a benevolent nun who had volunteered there and been appalled by what she witnessed, Julian discovered his mother had been moved to Willowbrook Residential Care Home, Framlingham, a remote, forgotten spot where no one would think to look for her. The journey there was solitary and agonizing. Julian drove for long hours across secondary roads, his mind teeming with a toxic blend of devastating guilt and fragile hope he was terrified to nurture. Each mile felt like an eternity, each passing town a stark reminder of how much time had been stolen. Upon reaching the home, a simple yet dignified place with pale yellow walls and modest but well-tended gardens, a middle-aged nurse with gentle eyes led him to a second-floor room, bathed in the soft, golden afternoon light filtering through lace-curtained windows. And there she was. Eleanor Sterling, seated by the window in an antique rocking chair, gazed at the distant horizon with the same enigmatic serenity as the portrait resting on the piano. Her hair was completely white now, her face etched with wrinkles that hadn't existed 6 years ago. Her hands trembled slightly with age, but her eyes, those eyes Julian had known since he could remember, remained unchanged. As she heard footsteps and turned slowly, recognition was instantaneous and devastating. Her eyes filled with tears that began to stream freely down her wrinkled cheeks. "Julian, my boy, you came." Her voice emerged tremulous, laden with years of waiting and unanswered prayers. He fell to his knees beside her, utterly incapable of containing the grief erupting in violent sobs. "Mother, I didn't know. I swear by all that is sacred I knew nothing. Forgive me, please." He clasped her hands, squeezing them as if fearing she might vanish again. Eleanor cradled her son's face in her trembling yet surprisingly strong hands, as if assuring herself he was real and not another cruel hallucination her mind conjured during solitary nights. "I knew you would come, my darling. I always knew. I prayed every night, telling God my son wouldn't abandon me, that he simply didn't know the truth. And God heard me. You are here." There was no anger in her voice, only an unconditional love that had survived 6 years of unjust confinement. Eleanor's return to Hawthorne Manor was a seismic emotional tremor that shook not only the family, but the entire high society following the Sterlings. Genevieve, sensing that ruin was inevitable and complete, desperately attempted to flee the country using false passports and secret offshore bank accounts, but Julian had already discreetly involved the authorities. The evidence meticulously accumulated over weeks, forged documents with forensic proof of falsification, records of illegal payments to doctors and staff, detailed testimonies from clinic employees who found the courage to speak, all culminated in her dramatic arrest at the airport. The charade publicly unraveled in spectacular fashion, and the scandal violently rocked the social circles that had once admired and envied her. transforming her from society queen to pariah overnight. Julian faced the most agonizing dilemma of his life: how to explain to his daughter, Chloe, only 13 and still so innocent, that her mother had committed such a heinous crime against the very grandmother she had never known. After consulting specialist psychologists and enduring sleepless nights, he chose the truth, however painful and traumatic, for lies had already wrought too much destruction. And in the girl's stunned, devastated gaze, in the eyes that welled with tears of confusion and betrayal, he saw reflected the same brutal anguish he felt upon discovering the truth. Yet it was Eleanor, with her infinite kindness and wisdom gleaned through decades of life and suffering, who brought gradual healing to that shattered family. With angelic patience and unconditional love, she drew close to her frightened, confused granddaughter, a girl who had lost her mother in the most traumatic way imaginable. She shared stories of Julian's childhood, making Chloe laugh through her tears, teaching her to play the piano with the same patience she had used with her son decades ago, rebuilding familial bridges never adequately constructed. Sarah Davies remained at Hawthorne Manor, no longer a subordinate employee, but a cherished family friend, and a living symbol of moral courage and commitment to truth, even when it could have cost her everything. 6 months after Eleanor's return, Hawthorne Manor finally breathed with genuine life again. The windows remained open throughout the day, allowing the fresh, perfumed air to circulate freely, expelling the specters that had haunted those corridors for so long. The garden, once held in rigid artificial order, now boasted free-spirited, spontaneous beds where wildflowers grew joyfully beside the roses, creating an imperfect yet authentic harmony. The grand piano once again sang out in the afternoons, with Chloe playing melodies Eleanor taught her with infinite patience, their laughter echoing through corridors that had known only silence. Julian established the Eleanor Sterling Foundation for Ethical Care, a non-profit organization dedicated to overseeing psychiatric and geriatric institutions, offering free legal aid to victims of abusive confinement, and educating families about their rights. His mother's story, once buried in silence and shame beneath layers of deceit, became a public banner for justice and mental health care system reform. He testified before parliamentary select committees, gave interviews to newspapers and television programs, transforming his personal agony into tangible social change. On a tranquil autumn afternoon, with golden leaves drifting gently into the revitalized garden, Julian sat on a wooden bench, watching his mother and daughter laughing together as they tried to teach tricks to a dog Chloe had adopted. The guilt still lingered, and likely always would, a permanent scar upon his soul. Yet now it shared space with profound gratitude for his mother's return, with a renewed purpose to make a difference in the world, and with genuine hope for the future. Eleanor approached and sat beside him, holding his hand with maternal tenderness, and said softly, her voice laden with wisdom, "Do not blame yourself for what you failed to see, my dear boy. She was exceedingly skilled in her manipulation. Instead, celebrate what you managed to find. Celebrate that you possessed the courage to question, to investigate, to seek the truth, even when it was easier to continue believing the comfortable lie." And Julian finally understood, allowing the lesson to penetrate deep into his wounded heart. True love is not easily extinguished, even when buried beneath years of elaborate lies, cruel manipulation, and devastating betrayal. It waits patiently, resilient as deep roots, until someone finally possesses enough courage to unearth it and bring it back into the light. And when that happens, when truth finally prevails, healing can commence, slow but inexorable, like flowers pushing through concrete cracks. If this story moved you as it did me, click the video on your screen now for another tale sure to stir your heart. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more incredible stories.